Hello, everybody. Welcome to the summit. We are opening the summit with this training today. I'm glad to see so many of you on the line. So today, as the title of the training suggests, we are going to see how to build a management and monitoring solution for your Apache Ignite or GridGain clusters. And that would be an interactive section. Imagine that we are sitting in some room and I'm your instructor. You're supposed to build and to deploy this solution on your personal laptops. So that's why throughout this session, start using this chat window as soon as you need it, because that's an interactive section. My goal is for you so that you figure out not just how GridGain Control Center works, but how to use the tool to build the kind of some foundation for your management and monitoring system. Speaking about myself, again, my name is Denis Magda. For the last 5 years, I have been working with distributed and memory systems. I'm gaining practical experience by contributing to Apache Ignite. I'm an Apache Ignite committer and a PMC member. And at the same time, I have a luxury of working for the developer relations group at GridGain. That gives me a lot of opportunities to meet with architects and developers who build and deploy large and production scale solutions with Apache Ignite and GridGain. Before distributed systems, I spent a lot of the time working for Java architecture engineering groups at Oracle and Sun Microsystems. My zone of responsibilities and interest was Java for mobile devices and Java for microcontrollers, so embedded devices. I was developing JDK, JVM, etc., porting those virtual machines to mobile phones and to different microcontrollers. And my professional career started at Sun Microsystems. Those days, I worked for a technology evangelism group. We were spreading the word not only about Java, but also about many Sun technologies such as NetBeans, Solaris, to name a few. Training flow. Let's talk about the training. For this training, we are booking 2 hours. So I suppose that in 2 hours from now, you will finish successfully, building and deploying your management and monitoring system on your personal laptops. And to be more specific, the first 5 minutes I'll spend for the so-called for the introduction. I will explain you what you are supposed to build and deploy, and then I will give you a brief introduction of GridGain Control Center, because that tool is relatively new. It was announced several months ago, and probably not everyone who is on the line have ever touched that tool before this training. Right after that, once in 5 minutes, you will start with the very first task, and the very first task would be to start this demo setup, to deploy everything on your personal laptop. Once you finish with that deployment, we will start configuring a special dashboard with GridGain Control Center, and that dashboard will report different memory usage metrics and disk usage metrics. Then I think it makes sense to take a 5-minute break so that you can stand up, warm up your muscles, brew a cup of tea or coffee, and then once you return, we will carry on this task number 3. With that one, you will see how to set up different alerts so that GridGain Control Center can notify you when an important or critical event happens with your cluster. For instance, we will be configuring alerts for memory usage metrics and for the number of nodes you have in your cluster. And after that, we will quickly see how to use distributed tracing to measure performance and execution time of distributed transactions. And we will finish this training with with the final task. When you go in production with Ignite, GridGain, or any other distributed database, like just conventional database, you need to have backups. And with this final task, you will create a quick backup, and then you will corrupt your cluster, and then you will use that backup to restore the corrupted data. As you see, for most of these tasks, we are booking for 20 minutes, but I would say that only the first task will be the longest. But as for the other tasks, Most likely we will finish in 5-10 minutes. I'm just keeping and booking a bit more time so that we can have, you know, conversations, so that I do believe that some of you will have some issues, and I need to keep some extra time to help you to troubleshoot all the issues so that you can proceed, so that we can proceed successfully as a group. All right, that's it. So again, chat window, that's an interactive session. I'm just your instructor. If anything goes wrong, or if you have any questions, if anything is unclear, or you want to know details, use the chat window. And probably the chat window is much better for the training, because the questions you ask might be coming to the minds of other guys who are sitting in the same virtual room right now. All right, introduction. What you are going to build, what you're going to deploy today. That will be your demo setup. I prepared a special project for this training. This project is hosted on GitHub. And once you download or clone it, you will use your personal laptop to deploy the whole solution in Docker. How that solution will look like. You will have a 2-node cluster. On this picture, I'm showing a cluster of Ignite nodes, but in fact, with this training, we will be using GridGain nodes. The reason is that throughout this training, I will be demonstrating some of the features, such as snapshots, that are integrated in Control Center, and that feature is not available for Ignite. I just want to show you all the capabilities for your potential management and monitoring system. Once you deploy this cluster, you will deploy a local version of GridGain Control Center. We actually could go to, let's say, and use the hosted version of Control Center and shorten some, installations times. But I decided purposely, I decided that it would be better if you try, to experience everything with your hands. If you go ahead, download everything and install everything on your laptop. Once that's ready, you will deploy a special demo application, also in Docker. And what that application does, it connects to a PubNub service, to the PubNub service. You will subscribe to a special stream, and that stream will be sending to your application market orders. Let's say New York Stock Exchange, what's happening there right now. All those orders will be coming to your application, and then your application will be pushing and storing all those market orders in your Ignite cluster, and then you will be using GridGain Control Center, to monitor the cluster and to do some operations with it. All right, hope it makes sense. If you have any questions, please go ahead and ask. And GridGain Control Center, that's the tool we are going to use kind of as the foundation of our management and monitoring system. So what that tool does, generally that's the tool that was specifically designed for Ignite and GridGain clusters. Not only can you, monitor all the metrics and aspects of your distributed systems, like you can create custom dashboards that report memory metrics. Like actually, you can look at and report like for more than 100 metrics that are available in Ignite, and everything can be presented in this nice manner. You can have different chart tables, then plain tables, heat maps. We have a special widget for rebalancing. Also, as you will see throughout this session, the tool allows you to set up alerts so that you get notified and informed whenever anything critical happens in your cluster. Then with the tracing, you will be able to introspect the execution time of your distributed transactions. So that the tool allows us to run SQL queries, SQL commands, do cluster snapshots, and a bunch of other capabilities. Like some of the most prominent capabilities you will experience today with your hands. All right, then, I think that we've got the first question. Let's check it, and then we can proceed. The first question is GridGain Control Center free to download and use? Yes, you can download the GridGain. You can download this tool free. The free version allows you to use it with 2-node cluster, and that's more than enough for our demo setup. If you will be running more than 2 nodes in your production environment, then you just need to buy the license for Control Center. And I would say that's not an expensive tool. Anyway, task number 1, let's move forward. Whenever you will see the slide like this, that is titled as hands-on, it means that it's time for you to do something, to do some work on your end. So as the step one, what are the prerequisites for this training? And this, just in case the same prerequisites were shared on the web page of this training, on the website of the IMC Summit. So what you need to have, you need to use Chrome or Safari for GridGain Control Center, because at least if you're using Microsoft Edge, then don't do it for the today training. We discovered some of the usability issues that would make it complicated. So use Chrome or Safari. Then with the demo setup, everything will be running in Docker. That's why you need to have at least Docker version 19th or later in Docker Compose, so that what you will be doing, you will be just typing special Docker commands or Maven commands, and everything will be, booting in, deploying, and running. Also, Java Development Kit 8 or later, and Apache Maven. That's what you need to have. If anything is missing, if anything is not installed in your environment, quickly go ahead, Google for a missing software piece, and deploy it and install it on your laptop. Rather than that, let's proceed with the first step. What you need to do right now, you need to download the demo of the training project, and you need to start your Apache Ignite cluster, 2-node Apache Ignite cluster. I will be doing the same. I will be executing the same commands. So I will be copying and pasting most of these commands that you can see on the screen. You can just type them in, or you can copy them and paste from the chat window. I will be placing everything in the chat window going forward. But right now, let's do this. That's their address of the training. Where is my chat? Check the chat. You can copy and paste and open it. All right, while you do this, let me also download this on my side. That's the project. You can download, you can clone it, whatever you want. I will go ahead and download this project. Okay, guys, while you're downloading, let me check our questions. We've got one extra. Emir says we are getting socket errors when starting Docker Compose and Googling to figure, but not sure if those should be sent here. I tried to figure it alone either way. Yes, try to, if you're running on Windows or Mac OS, actually try to find the Docker Compose installer, and hopefully you will not go that far. But anyway, let us know how your installation goes. I will be copying the rest of the commands in the chat window so that you can catch up with us. All right, guys, and the next step, right? Once you download this project, let's go ahead and start the cluster. In my case, the project is placed into their downloads folder. It's named Ignite Streaming Demo Master. If you're running on Windows, most likely you also need to unzip this folder if you downloaded it. So what do we have inside? Let's check it out. We have, some Docker folder. Here is we have a plenty of different configuration files. We don't need to look into them. Everything is automated for you. Then what else we have? We have a PAM XML file that we will use, to build the application, and some other configuration files that are located in the config folder. And these configuration files will be used, like passing set of the parameters for your clusters and some configuration settings for the control center. All right. Okay, let's go ahead and execute this first command that will start Ignite cluster. We are using Docker Compose, Docker Ignite cluster, YAML. We are saying that start the services using this configuration file, and I want to have 2 instances of Apache Ignite. Server node 2. Okay, that's the command. Just in case I'm copying this command for you in the chat window. The cluster is started on my end. And so here is I want to take a pause. I want guys you know to come to this point. Give me a thumbs up if you're all just +1, vote up if you were able to start this cluster. If not, if you still have any issues, also feel free to ask the question. I'm giving you some time. I want to see the very first thumbs up or +1 that you are able to start the cluster. All right. Someone is asking, I believe all instructions are at GridGain tutorials, management and monitoring. Yeah, that's this interactive training is based on that written tutorial. And today is just the goal for all of us, you know, to meet as a group and to have this solution running. So after this training, if you want, you always that written tutorial can be used by you as a bookmark. If you know, like you don't need to record all these instructions right now. Whenever is needed, you always can open that written tutorial and proceed. But as of now, guys, how are we doing? Tell me if you're. So yes, you can take all the commands from there, but like it's better, you know, to proceed step by step. That's what we are doing today. Someone is asking where is the tutorial. It's here, like that's the training, guys. Just that's the first slide. I'm pasting these steps. You see the steps in here, and also you can check the chat window for the instructions. So go ahead and start your Ignite cluster. That's the place where you can download the demo from, and that's how you start your cluster, this Docker. You're asking, are the slides available? Yes, the slides will be available and shared with you after the training. So right now, just follow me and do the commands that you see on the screen. And these commands are available in the chat window. Yeah, the Git is already in the chat. Do you see it? Richard is asking, can you post the Git URL? Venkat and Ksenia, the guys are saying they cannot see the chat window.
Yeah, so in GoToWebinar control panel, there should be a chat window, Richard. And if you sort of open it up, you should see both the GitHub link and the Docker compose command that Denis had posted. And then if you have questions, I believe you need to go to the questions panel and then ask a question.
Yeah, probably, you know, like, and also guys, I encourage you to use the chat rather than questions, because in chat, everybody can see your questions and maybe you'll
I
be
don't know
talking.
if, Denis, it looks like they don't have access to the, they can post in the chat window, it sounds like, to every broadcast post to everybody. They can post to us, I believe, to the organizers, but not other attendees.
Okay, so I need to share with you and you will be sharing with the audience.
No, when you post on chat, you can sort of post it for the whole audience, but audience can't post for everybody else.
I got it. So again, the chat window, you can see down there, you have this GoToWebinar. People are always asking again. Yes, like someone is getting an error. What kind of error do you have? Just share this error with me and I will try to. So cannot create container for service Ignite. Status could not okay. System exception class name message. Stack tray string, remote stack watts and buckets. That's strange. What's your operating system? Okay, one we're trying to window 10. All right. Yeah, that might be. Just try to Google. That's something Docker specific. Probably that's the issue related to that's a connectivity issue. Yes, identification platform isn't available. Try to Google for this exception. It might be something Windows specific related to the Docker. Probably you need to, to tune, to tweak some of the parameters. Okay, good. So I see that some of you were able to start this demo. How do I verify that everything is running? If you see that Docker Compose reported that everything is done, then you are good with this step. Error version in Docker YAML isn't supported. You might be seeing this error because you're using the wrong compose file. It does specify a supported version and place your version definitions under the services key, or omit the version key and place your services definition in the root file. All right, someone else had let me see. You have the issue with and Jane. What's your version of what's your operating system? Because that means that probably you need to go ahead and change. Let me see. You need to change Docker Ignite cluster YAML. That's the version. Probably your Docker Compose version is different. Just go ahead and change this one. Check your Docker Compose version, and probably you just need to change this parameter, or just try to remove version from Ignite cluster YAML file, and then try to restart. All right, Ubuntu, can you please point me to the chat window? I'm on Mac. I'm also on Mac, Amir. All right, folks. Yeah, for this again, Jane, try to change something with this version in Ignite cluster YAML file. And Amir, in your case, just try to Google for this exception. That might be something Mac specific. Rather than that, let's proceed with the next step, because I see that some of the guys were able to start the cluster. And the next step is to deploy control center, GridGain control center in Docker. So that's the step 3. I'm copying this command into the chat window.
Hey, Dennis. Just saying hi.
Hello.
It's Glenn.
Hello, Glenn. All right.
So you're going to be on for 2 hours, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yep.
So I still have work to do. You're probably busy with your stuff. I'm just going to check. I can come back in an hour and 45. Is that right?
Yes, yours starts at 10:30.
I thought it was 2 hours from now.
No. It's like we're already up in the air for 25 minutes.
Dennis, I'll offline. The session is on. I'll send you a message offline.
Okay.
Can you send me a message when I'm supposed to join?
I meant I'll send you a message, Glenn, offline.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
All right, guys. Let's move forward. Docker Compose. Docker. That's instruction number 3. You can find it in the chat window. Docker control center YAML. up we're starting control center. With this one, once you succeed, you will be able to have your backend running and front end running. Again, do this on your side. And give me a thumbs up once you are able to deploy GridGain control center. Waiting for you, waiting for your +1, etc. All right, all right. All right, I see that. Yep. Some of you are able to proceed. And Amir, you're asking the question, the version you mentioned, version 3.7. So that was the version of the Docker compose file. I think if you're struggling to start either cluster or backend, like a GridGain control center, because Docker composes reports the issues related to their version, go ahead and change the version in the configuration file. For instance, the configuration file for the Ignite cluster is this one, Docker Ignite cluster, and that's the configuration, that's the current version in this file. You might need to adjust it depending on your version of Docker, right? It depends on what type, on the type of the exception you see. All right, guys, next step, you deployed GridGain control center, and right now what we need to do, we need to hook control center together with the cluster so that whenever you are opening control center UI in your browser, that UI backend is able to connect to your cluster and collect all the metrics. So that for this instruction, I am copying these instructions. All right, I see +++1. Okay, it is working on step 2. Yes, I see that the guys, yes. I mean, it's not, yes, many. So let's do this. And those of you who are having issues, I will return to you. Let me copy some of the instructions for the step 4 for the guys who came to this point, and then I will check the chat window again and see what some of you are struggling with. All right, that's step 4. We are connecting to one of their cluster containers. You will connect to the cluster container. You will go to the directory, to the bin directory, and then you need to execute this management sh command to change the chat, everything is in chat, to set the address of your backend server. And that address will be recorded in the cluster metadata storage. I'm doing this on my side as well. I'm executing Docker exec IT. I'm connecting to the first container of Ignite, to the first node container, Docker Ignite server node 1. I'm connected. I'm inside of that container. Then I'm going into the bin folder. And right now I'm executing this management sh command that sets the address of the backend. All right, the command executed successfully. Take your time. These instructions, you can just type these instructions by copying them from their slide or by checking the chat window, whatever works for you. And again, once you are done, give me +1 or thumbs up. In the meantime, let me check what other exceptions some of you are struggling with. Amir is saying that means not close, and 3.1 seems an Ignite thing and not a Docker thing, and 3 shows on at least another config. No, that 3.7 version, let me see, what was your original exception? I can send the full stack trace, transportation. I see that, no, probably something confusing. Yeah, I mean, share the whole stack trace once again if you're experiencing any problems. I want to see where you are with your exceptions. And as for Gene, let me check to Gene check the version of the Docker Compose to 3.3. It was working on step 2. And right now, error response from daemon. I know, like, so that's some Docker. And Gene, are you having troubles with what? With starting? You are not able to start the cluster, right? You're still you got stuck on that step. Let me know. Okay, and I'm checking. Okay, and Gene, you're on step 4. All right, let me check it. First, I'm checking the stack trace of a mirror. Python. File not found directory. All right, I'm checking. All right, some request. During handling of exceptions, another exception occurred. You know, Amir, I have no idea. That's something related to the Docker installation. What do you see? Like, try to to execute some basic Docker command like Docker Compose version. Do you have any troubles? And make sure that you are located in the folder, in the root folder of the training project. So basically, do 2 checks, right? Check that you can execute something like compose, Docker Compose version, something like that. And make sure that when you're executing that command, make sure that you're staying in the root directory of the training. All right. Step 4, Gene, yep, guys, I see that many of you, yep, you're able to proceed with this step. Let me quickly help some of the guys who are still struggling. Gene, you're saying that you got stuck on step 4. Try to do this. Execute Docker container ls. That command returns all the presently running containers, and find the name of your Ignite cluster. Like, try to copy this one. Just copy and paste this. Copy the command from the chat window. That's how it looks like. So generally, you might have some issues with this. Like here we use underscore, then we use dash. Let me check the chat window where I'm using this command, when I share this command. All right. Docker bash no such file or directory. So June is trying to bash. So June, when you go in, so no such file or directory, you're trying to go into the bin folder. That's strange. Let me know like what's printed with this ls command, where you are. Once you are inside of the container, execute ls, and you should see this. You see, I see this bin folder. And when I'm probably you need to go, like, probably you're logged in somewhere else. Once you get into this bin folder, you can see all these commands and all these scripts, and then you can execute management sh script. Yep, Gene, your Docker container ls does not, you do not have the cluster running. I mean, you have the controls, you have control center running, but you don't have the cluster running. Execute step 2, you need to have the cluster running. Let me copy this command for you. Like, check the chat window, and in the chat window you have step 2. That's the special Docker command that starts the cluster. You need to do that. Once you do that, you proceed with the step 4. All right. June, the bin folder is here, like first from your terminal window. Let me do this once again for you. That's my terminal window. I am connecting to one of the containers of Ignite, server node number 1. You use this command. Then once you are in, you can execute the ls command, and you will see that you are in the root directory of Ignite inside of the Docker. Then you go into the bin folder, and then you execute that management sh command you can see on my screen. All right, folks. I see that many of you were able. Apologize, guys, if I see that some of you are still struggling, but try to check the chat window. You need to execute all those commands step by step, and once you do this, it's all fine. Unfortunately, it looks like that at least Amir has some issues with Docker installation. Amir, try to Google, because I think that that's not something I can help you with right now. But anyway, if nothing works, just sit and relax and watch this training. Then we can get in touch and we will figure what was wrong on your side, because it would help me to improve this training as well. All right, guys, let's move forward, because the time is passing by. Step 5. With the step 5, right now you have the cluster running, and right now you need to open. You can open Control Center. You can create an account, and then you would actually activate your cluster with Control Center. To do that, step 5, just open this address in your browser. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the browser should be either Safari or Chrome. At least everything was working in those browsers for me. I'm opening the tool. Do this, and you can see, and you should see a similar screen inside of your browser. All right. Once you open it, go for the sign up. Click the sign up button. And here is, just create some dummy account. This account is not reported or sent everywhere. It will be stored inside of your local installation instance of Control Center. So I will just use something, Denis, Magda, GridGain.com, some password, some name, doesn't matter. Company, I don't know. Region, agree to terms. That's it. Just create this account and click sign up. I don't want to update the passwords. All right, and so once you do this, you will end up on this screen. Nothing is available, and the tool requests us to add some GridGain clusters. What do we need to do to make that happen? We need to go and check step number 6. Let me do this. Step number 6. We need to execute this Docker command. This Docker command will print the logs of your first Ignite container. And once you do this, inside of those logs, you will be able to see a special token. That token is a special secret that you need to pass into the Control Center, and Control Center will identify your cluster using the token. And that token is by default is printed to that logs when you start the cluster. So let me run this command on my end. Logs, Docker, Ignite server. I will copy this command for you. But first, let me just check that, yeah, by default, this token expires in 5 minutes. Most likely, we would need to regenerate it. That's why let me first check that everything works on my side. I'm opening the... Okay, yep. Unfortunately, we spent too much time for the troubleshooting. We right now need to regenerate this token. That's done for the security reasons. That's why. Let's do this. Again, your step number 6 would be a little bit different. First, you need again, you need to connect to the container of your GridGain cluster node. That would be the command. I'm just copying this command in the chat. That command in the chat, and I'm using the same command on my terminal window. I'm inside. Once you do this again, go to the bin folder. I'm typing this for you in the chat again. And once you do this, execute this script, management sh token. All right, that's the final command. Good, right? Once you do this, you will see this token. That's the token. It will expire in 5 minutes, so that's why we need quickly, you know, to use this token and pass it to the control center, to that control center window. So copy it. It will be different on your end because you have your cluster and you have your control center installation. So I'm going here and I'm pressing add cluster. I'm adding this token. All right, and that's what I've got. Finally, after 40 minutes, because as a group, right, we want to proceed together, we were able, you know, to do this. The control center was running. That's my cluster. And once you see this, you see that the cluster is inactive. Why it's happening? It happens because with this setup, the cluster is, we are using Ignite native persistence. All the data is kept on disk. And when you use Ignite native persistence, you have to activate the cluster explicitly, at least for the first time. So that's why to activate this cluster, you need to click on this button and click activate. All right, I'm activating this cluster. Everything is up and running, so the cluster is active on my side. Give me a thumbs up. Yes, I see that some of the guys are good to go. And luckily, yeah, Amir, we were able to find out that he had some troubles with Docker Compose. Amir, if you still have time, we will have a break soon. So try, you know, to fix that stuff. And as long as all the instructions are copied into the chat window, try to do everything step by step, right? So that probably you will catch up with us if you want this. Otherwise, just sit and enjoy. All right, folks. Good. I see +1. If you click on the dashboard on your side, you will see that your cluster, you have 2 nodes right now. The CPU is idle, heap usage is minimal, etc. Nothing happens. That's why we have to move forward to the next step, which is we need to start the demo application, and the demo application would connect to the PubNub service, and it would stream market orders in real time into our cluster. Let's quickly do this. We will finish this lengthy step. Step 7. All right. Make sure that you exit that Docker container. All right. You don't want to be there. Make sure that you return to your terminal window of your primary host operating system. Make sure that you are in their training, in the root of your training project. And right now, you need to execute this Maven command, Maven clean package. This command will build the instance of the application. This process will finish almost instantaneously on my end, but I do believe that it will take probably around a minute or 2 on your side, because you might not have all the Maven artifacts available in your local copy of the Maven repository. So just execute this command. Let me copy it for you in the chat window, and then give it like 1 minute or 2 this command to finish, right? Maven. This command is Maven clean package. Make sure you are in the root of training project. All right. I see that the guys are good. You're able to build this application. That's why we are moving forward with step 8. And with step 8, that's the only time when you need to, you need to adjust the configuration settings. You need to open this Docker Ignite streaming file and tweak one of the configuration parameters. That configuration parameters says for how long our application is supposed to run. Let's do this. I'm using Nano. You can use any text editor. It doesn't matter. Just open Docker Ignite streaming app YAML file. Search for this exact time parameter. By default, the execution time is 30 minutes. We will be using this application for a little bit longer. Just set to the 90 minutes and save everything. All right. And step 9. So let me write step 8 for you. Okay. Open the file below and change the exact time parameter to 90. All right, that will be your step 9 or step 8. Sorry. And with step 9, let me do this step 9, and then I will return to your question. So with step 9, we need to package this application in Docker and run it eventually. A Docker build. We are building this application. We are using streaming app Docker file, and the name of the container would be Ignite, of the service would be Ignite streaming app. And I wanted to place here. All right, it starts building the application. It also might take a minute or so on your side. Let me copy this command for you in the chat. And once you are done, the next step is just to start this application. All right. And to start this application, we need to use again Docker compose f Docker ignite streaming app YAML file appd. All right. I'm starting it. It's running on my side. Take your time. Once you are finished with these two last steps, plus one in their question section. All right. I see that June is asking, after I get the token at step 6, what should I do? All right. Let me see step 6. Yeah, June. After you do this, go here, open your control center deployment, localhost 84443, and then on the clusters tab, you will have add cluster button, and here is click this add cluster and copy the token inside it, like in here, right? Click OK, your cluster will be discovered, and once the cluster is discovered, you need to activate it. You activate the cluster, by clicking on this menu item, and here is you would have activate. My cluster is already activated. All right. I see that many of you, you're able to complete with this final step. So let's check what we've got. That was step 7, step 8, step 9. Right now, the whole setup is working. It took us a while to complete. Take your time. I see that some of you are still finishing. Bear with me. We will wait for you. But those of you who have already completed, you can actually go ahead and check that everything works, right? How do we do this? We can right now go to the SQL tab and execute a simple SQL query that will print the latest traits that are being streamed into the cluster from PubNub service. So right now, if you go to the dashboard, I have two servers and I have this client application connected. Finally, the CPU is under the load. We have some heap usage metrics. And as I said, go to the SQL tab. And here is you can erase this query. We don't need it. And instead execute this SQL query. Let me do it here. Select. Let's select the 10 latest. Select from table. Select from trade. Select from trade. order by order date, descending order, and limit 10. Let's print the 10 latest trades. Order. Oh no. Let's select from trade, order by, select from trade, order by. All right. If you let me copy this one, that will be the final step 10. You are doing this on the SQL screen. And if you keep executing it, you will see that the trades are changing, that the data is constantly being streamed, right? Click it, and you see that the data is coming, the data is floating. All right, some of the questions. So actually, that's the first task. We finished with it. So let me quickly check the questions, and then we will proceed to the next episode. Step 9. Okay, step 9. How did the stock application connect to the cluster? So that's how it happens. If to remind you about the setup, that's just a Java application. The Java application uses special PubNub services, some APIs. It connects to this service and basically streams and kind of receives all the streams from PubNub, and then it pushes all this data into your Ignite cluster using Ignite APIs. Inside of there, if you would like to check the source code, you just need to you need to check this folder. It's inside source, main Java or GridGain, probably market ticker, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's like inside it here. Don't quite understand why container is not showing IGN. I don't know, probably have already spent too much time on this, but full access denied for Ignite streaming repository does not exist. Okay, Richard. All right, let me see that Richard is saying that full access denied for Ignite streaming application repository does not exist. To may require Docker login denied, requested access to the resources denied. Richard, are you trying to build the application with Maven? Most likely.
He said, Dennis, below that he says he missed the Docker build.
Okay, that's good. George, okay, no, another guy person has troubles with, you cannot execute query, the button is gray. Let's do this. If the button is gray, if you cannot execute that query, double check that your cluster is activated. Go to the cluster screen, find that cluster. If the cluster status is inactive, then you need to click on this menu item, and here you would have the activate button. Do this. Once this happens, everything should be fine. You should able to see your caches, your nodes in here, and then you can execute queries. All right. Yep, I see thumbs up. Guys, give me +1 if you're finished with this step. If you were able to execute this query, it means that your whole demo setup is ready. All right, good, wonderful. Thanks for the patience. We just need to ensure that we as a group can progress together fruitfully. Anyway, let's go to the step 2, because right now, yes, we are no longer need to do anything with Docker. The setup is running right now. Let's just focus on Control Center, because with Control Center, we want to do something useful with our demo setup. And the second task would be to configure a special dashboard that reports storage usage metrics. So what that dashboard, like what Ignite, what Control Center supports from that standpoint. As I said earlier, with controls, Ignite goes with and kind of exposes hundreds and hundreds of different metrics. And sometimes it's hard, to navigate among those metrics. But what we know for sure, we want to know like how much off-heap memory is used, what's the current Java heap consumption, how much disk space we use, how much time does it take for the checkpointing process, to write, to synchronize all the changes to disk. And with this section, we will be doing this. Generally, whenever you can kind of create dashboard of any configuration, whatever you need to monitor in Ignite, and you will be able to create nice looking tabs and widgets. Some of them are shown on this screen. So right now, what we are doing with this task, and I think that we will be able to complete it really quick. You will create this dashboard, and then, as I said, you would add special widgets for that to monitor off-heap memory, Java heap, disk storage, and write-ahead log size. Probably we will skip some of the settings, and then you can use, let's say, the written version of the tutorial. It depends on the time that is left for us. But anyway, so first thing first. So right now, starting here, let me do this. Let's go to the control center. Let's create that storage usage dashboard, and let's add the very first two widgets. And those widgets will be reporting physical memory consumption and heap usage. I'm going back to my local host. Yeah, let me copy these instructions for you. I will update the chat. So right now we are talking about task 2. All right. And for the task 2, step 1 is create storage usage dashboard. And step 2, add this widget reporting. Step 2, yeah, I'll copy this all for you. Step 2, and that's step 3, because yeah, some of you are not giving up and trying to catch up with us. Luckily, I'm happy that Amir, you were able, to fix your installation. Great. Amir is catching up with us. Yep, he was able to activate the cluster. Glad to hear that. Let me see that Jefferson joined late. Where is the GitHub training project for the future? I will share all the references at the end. So just as of now, just sit and watch, and you will get all the references. And also we have a written version of this tutorial. So no worries, you will be able to execute all these steps during your free time. All right, let's go to Control Center. We are going to the dashboard. The default dashboard exists, but right now we want to have a custom one. That's why click on plus, on the plus button. Here is you've got this new dashboard. Let's name it specifically. That's our storage usage dashboard. All right, save it. We don't have any widget yet. That's why click on the add widget button, because what we need to do next, we want to add we want to see how much of off-heap memory is used by our cluster nodes. Let's use metrics table. The widget type metrics table. And so what you do here, so first you need to select metric scope. You're selecting node. It means that we want the off-heap memory consumption to be reported for every node of your cluster. And the name, as I copied in the chat window, the name of this metric is physical memory size. So default is like the name of your data region. If you're not familiar with like data, all the memory space in Ignite is split into data regions, and that's the default one. So click on it and add it. Good. That's what you should have. My application is running for how, like for 10 minutes, and that's how much memory was occupied in off-heap. And step 3, right, of this task, I want to add the second widget. Again, right now, let's select the matrix chart type. Again, your scope would be node, and the name of this metric is heap used. Yeah, just type it in or copy from the chat window, and here it is. Click on it and click OK. All right. Well, that's what I have. That's off-heap memory. In off-heap memory, Ignite keeps, to remind you, Ignite keeps data and indexes, while Java heap is used, to store your temporary objects that are generated while your application interacts with your cluster. You can always rename this while I'm waiting for you. Give me just, guys, +1 or thumbs up once you are able to define and create the same widgets. While I'm waiting for those responses, let me just rename these widgets so that we understand what this is all about. That's of heap memory, and that's Java heap. All right, good. All right, good. I see that many of you are able to you're able to get to this point. That's why let's swift through. We need to do more. The final steps of this task. This task, as I promised, would be really quick. Let's do this. Right now, we want to see what's the overall disk consumptions. As I said, in this current configuration, Ignite keeps all the data in its native persistence. So that's why it's safe to shut down the whole cluster and not to worry about any data loss. 100% of the data on disk, but we want to see how the disk is utilized. And also when it comes to step number 6 or to step number 7, we want to see some of the performance metrics, because as long as Ignite uses disk actively, it needs to synchronize dirty pages that are stored in memory with disk, and we want to see how much time it's spent for the checkpointing or synchronization of the write-ahead log file. All right, let's do this. Let me first copy all these instructions for you into the chat window. Step 4, guys. Step 5. Because right now, after we do this, I will switch to my control center dashboard, and I will be adding these widgets with you. All right, let's do the first. Let me add a couple of widgets, and then I will check the questions that you are posting. All right, so step 4, what we want to do, we want to monitor the storage size. Let's do the table, matrix table type. But in fact, it just doesn't really matter. It's up to you. Again, you need to select the node scope and then type in storage size. Just storage size, not sparse storage size. Okay, not scope, storage size. Clicking OK. That's how much memory is used on disk in persistence files as of now. Let me rename it to disk size. And the 5th step, I want to see a similar metric, but for the write-ahead log files. Let's do the table again, add widget, the matrix table type. Again, the same procedure. We are selecting the matrix scope node, and then you are selecting, what's the name of this? I've already forgot. The name is while total size, all right? Do this. Good. This size is bigger because what happens? As you remember, that application streams data indefinitely and endlessly, not giving any slack to their cluster. That's why every update that is stored in memory, that update of that operation is written to the write-ahead log file. And then whenever Ignite will be running checkpointing process that pushes 30 pages from memory to disk files, that would help us, to trim the size of the write-ahead log file. And generally, every Ignite node has a write-ahead log file, and they have write-ahead log archives that can be used for restore procedures. But rather than that, usually write-ahead log files are big, but whenever you are running production, you can always Ignite and can always trim them as long as the checkpointing flushes all their changes from memory to special disk files. So no worries about this size. Okay, And finally, let's do the step 6 and step 7. Let me do this step 6. I want to monitor the performance of the checkpointing, because with checkpointing, that's what happens from memory to disk. We are keeping pushing changes to the files. Right now, let's use the matrix chart type. I'm using node, scope, and the name of the metric is last checkpoint of sync duration. No, just last checkpoint duration, this one. And the name is in the chat as well. Let's edit. Here, as you see, that make sure the checkpointing takes place. Ignite writes to the write-ahead log file the latest changes, but also it tries to keep the persistence files actuals. That's the latency of some of the checkpointing operations on my screen. You might have a different chart because you have your laptop, you have different resources, etc. And the last one, I will do this widget, and then I will check your questions. And the last one, let's monitor the same latency and performance characteristics for the write-ahead log synchronization. Again, click Add Widget, matrix chart type, node, scope, and the name is a little bit of this metric is a little bit complicated, so let me just copy it also from the chat in here. It's data storage write-ahead log of sync time duration. Just go ahead and click it. All the names are in the chat, okay? And that's like how much, like that's the latency for the write-ahead log synchronization. Okay, that's what you've got. That's what I've got. That's all you need to do right now. You've created the storage usage dashboard. That dashboard reports off-heap memory usage, disk size usage, Java heap. You can rearrange if you want. For instance, that's for the memory. That's for disk. That's my write-ahead log file. Let me rename this for you so that it's clear. That's checkpointing duration. It's ready, and that's basically one of the templates you can use for your production monitoring. Those are the metrics that you definitely want to keep an eye on while synchronization duration. Good. You should have something relatively similar. Okay, let me catch up with the questions. The question is, chart is different, but I expect, it is expected, I guess. Yes, in your case, the chart will be different because different laptop, different cluster, different resources. It don't need to be 100% the same. The other question, does GridGain Control Center has capability to load caches like we do using Visor as of today? It does not have that capability now, but that capability is already on the roadmap. So I think that it will appear in some foreseeable future. All right, the other question got the warning, some services Ignite streaming up uses the deploy key, which will be ignored. Compose does not deploy configuration, use Docker stack deploy to Swarm. Yeah, I think, like this Docker, yes, the thing is not as good as it promised. Probably, again, that's related to your Docker setup. And for me, that's a good sign that I need to revisit. Should we use Docker for these trainings? And if yes, then how we can, optimize the installation so that we can, save more time for the configuration of the system. The other question, sorry, joined late. Do we need to enable additional metrics on GridGain data service nodes to capture all these details, or is it default? These metrics that I have added to the storage usage dashboard we've just created, you don't need to do anything else. Let me see what I've enabled. I have the cluster configuration. That's the training project that we are using. Let me see what's the config we use for Ignite cluster. Yep. Here is the storage configuration. We have enabled metrics, collection, memory, and disk metrics, and persistence is enabled. And also, yes, I enabled this property. So generally, all of these settings were copied from Ignite and GridGain documentation. So generally, that's what I've done. Yeah, I have to enable some of the parameters to collect these metrics. Can we get link for this session? Yes, everything will be shared, recording, instructions, and also we have a written version of this tutorial, so that if you have joined us too late, no worries. Take a seat, enjoy what we are doing with the rest of the group, and then you can repeat all the steps by following that written version of the tutorial. All right. All right, guys, give me +1 because I do expect that you were able to define the storage usage dashboard and you can see this metrics. All right. Good. What if the node dies before persisting? Yep, let me take this question and then we will take a 5-minute break. All right. The last question is, what if the node dies before persisting write a head log file? You know, like here is it's all the same as what happens with Oracle that dies when an operation is in progress. So what happens with data consistency of your Postgres database when it dies in the middle of a transaction execution? Let's say if any partial update is written to the write ahead log file, then upon during that node restart, that update will be erased, removed, because Ignite, when you're restarting your node or your cluster, Ignite will check and replay the write ahead log file, and all incompleted operations will be removed so that you do not see that effect on your data consistency. All right. And step 10. All right, June, finally, I see that you've got also, you were able to log in. Let me help June. June, with step 10 of task 1, if you want to execute this query, just go to the SQL. You see this, open your control center, go to the SQL tab. And here is type in this query, right? You should be able to see that the data is being constantly streamed into your cluster. It's like it's never ending story. And for another question, that means it is an ACID compliant database. Yes, that's the database that supports strong consistency. Ignite transactions are ACID compliant. And in 20 minutes, we will be using, let's say we will be using tracing, and you will be tracing the execution times of Ignite distributed transactions that are being committed by this application. Yeah, let's start doing this task 3, and then guys, I see that some of you are still asking the question. I will respond on these questions while some of you will be, you know, kind of setting up this alerts, etc. All right. So this task number 3, we are going to configure those alerts. Why do we need alerts? It's all great that, let's say, GridGain Control Center supports those custom dashboards that let us, you know, to keep an eye on various metrics and characteristics of the Ignite cluster. But at the same time, it's just impossible to sit in front of a monitor and see what's going on with your system. That's why, with the help of alerts, we can automate a lot of the processes. Alerts, you can create an alert for any metric of Ignite or GridGain, which means that, let's say that you want to be notified if your memory consumption goes beyond a certain threshold, or you want, you know, to involve your rescue team, production rescue team, if your cluster size goes below 2 nodes or something like that, anything you want. And GridGain Control Center lets you define all those alerts using just, you know, buttons and widgets, and then it will keep an eye on those alerts and will update you whenever anything happens. So what we are going to do next with this exercise, I think that generally we are supposed, you know, to configure a couple of alerts, but let's trim this exercise because it's quite clear and obvious. We will configure one alert instead, and then if you want, you can configure as many alerts as you need after this class is over. All right, but generally that's how your screen can look like. As many, like when you configure all those alerts, they will be shown here, and you will see the status, etc., etc. So let's do this. So right now, we need to create a custom notification channel that would be a dummy notification channel because we don't want to set up any email server. And then this time we will skip this step. We will not be configuring an alert for the physical memory usage. Instead, we will configure alert for the nodes count, and that alert will be triggered when the number of nodes is fewer than 2. Okay, let me copy these commands in the chat. We are talking about task 3. And the first one is we are creating this notification channel. And then we are setting up, and that would be step 2. We are skipping the setup of the memory metrics. We are setting up this alert for the number of nodes. How do we do this? How do we go about that? Again, go back to your control center screen, and here is click on the alerting. It's empty as of now. Nothing is being configured, and we need to start with the notification channels. Click on this tab and click on the Add Notification Channel button. Give some imaginary name. It doesn't matter. You can name it My Email Server. We don't have any actual server setup as of now, and neither a text message channel. That's what's supported in the current version of Control Center, and we can skip it. And then just type something random, send every notification to the rescue team at company.com. Anything, just you don't need to do precisely what I'm doing. Just my email server, rescue team. The channel is ready. And next, once you finish with this channel, let's do this. And while you're doing this, once you do this, give me a thumbs up +1. And in the meantime, let me check the questions. Yeah, June, I hope that you still had some troubles with the SQL. I hope most likely you forgot to start that application that creates all the tables and streams data from the internet into your cluster. I shared some of the specific instructions directly with you. Check their Q&A section. And the other question, cancels collocation. I meant this implies that nodes compete for storage among themselves. Could this be bottleneck? Elias, most likely I don't understand your question. Cancels collocation. I meant this implies that nodes compete for storage among themselves. Yep. I think I got your question. So in this case, right, as long as everything is running inside of a Docker and everything is running, the whole cluster, the whole setup is running on your single machine, everything is competing for a single resource. All these spikes, for instance, that you see on your storage dashboard, because it takes time to do the checkpointing, write a headlog synchronization. That's because your disk is stressed out right now, because all those nodes, all the applications are using the same resources. In the real setup of your production environment, your nodes, even if you deploy them in Docker, most likely they will be deployed on more powerful machines or on separate machines, so the numbers will be looking much better. All right, I see the first +1s, so that's why let's go back to the alerting. Notification channel is set. We are going to the configuration tab, and let's add this alert. That would be, let's name it node count alert. And as for the metric name, click on the metric. And so here is, right now, we need to select cluster scope. Before that, when you were creating the custom dashboard, you were selecting node scope. This time, select the cluster scope. And there are not that many metrics supported right now. So I want to monitor the number of server nodes. The server nodes actually store our data and records. Select this cluster, server nodes, click OK. And now you need to specify the condition when this alert has to be triggered. So the condition, let's put it if a number of nodes is less than 2. And the grace period, actually what it does, let's say right now you have 2 nodes and that violates the condition of the, let's say, of this alert, but that might be, some planned maintenance restart. And this grace period, will hold off with the alerting for the 1 minute for 60 seconds. If you want to be notified immediately as soon as the condition is violated, just set it to 0. That's what I'm doing. And notification, my email server, that is not working, but anyway. Okay, let's check. Node count alert. You selected server nodes count metric, and then condition less than 2, grace period 0, email server. Click add. Good. And right now, as long as their email server is not running, nothing, you will not get any notification. But if you refresh this screen, just refresh your tool, you will see that the condition is violated because I have 2 nodes in this cluster, right? And if I had the email server set up, I would receive the notification. But anyway, that's how it works. It was easy, right? And then you can go ahead and set up this alert for any metric you need. Give me +1s, guys. I'm waiting for you. And once this is finished, we will switch to the next task of this training, because that's, I think, more than enough for the alerting. It's quite intuitive. All right, good. I see +1. We're good to go. Wonderful. Thank you, folks. So what are we doing next? Task 4. And here is what I like this. Why I like this? What I like this part for is that it will let us to explore one of the latest feature of Igniting GridGain, which is tracing. The tracing feature appeared in GridGain probably like several months ago, and the same tracing feature was released in Ignite 0.9 a couple of days ago. And with tracing, actually, what can we do with tracing? With tracing, you can instrument the execution time of your distributed operations. Let's take the following example. You have an application that executes hundreds of distributed transactions over your Ignite cluster. And then suddenly, somewhere in production, you see that the latency spikes for those transactions. And that affects the performance and stability of your cluster. And you're sitting and you don't know how to proceed, because you don't know where the issue is. Who should I blame for this performance degradation? Is the issue on the application side, or might be the issue is on the cluster side, or it might be something in between? And with the help of the tracing helps you to identify the problematic place, so that after that you can go ahead and solve the problem. So it might happen that your cluster, you're running out of memory resources on the cluster, or CPU is saturated, and that's why the performance of your transaction suffers. And your reaction to this can be, you can scale out your cluster or do certain optimizations, or the issue might be on the application side. Anyway, and with the tracing, you can see all the execution steps of your distributed transactions. And the longest time and the longest the longest steps would be your problematic points that you need to investigate further. And what's supported from GridGain Control Center, and you can actually monitor, once you enable that tracing capability, let's say for your Ignite or GridGain clusters, you can monitor everything visually with Control Center. You don't need to install anything else. So, and that's actually what you're going to do right now in the next few minutes. Once you enable this tracing, we will open the tracing screen of Control Center, and we will check the execution times of our transactions. So it's relatively fast operation. All right, so that's the instruction. So again, right now we need to go back to our terminal windows. We need to connect to Docker again and execute these commands. With this command in step 2, we are going to enable tracing for transactions in Ignite. And the sampling rate parameter says that we are going to capture only 1/3 of all the transactions that are happening, because we don't need more. We don't need to look at more. So let me execute and copy these commands for you. And after that, I will check your chat window, because some of you might have some questions or troubles. All right, where is my terminal? I'm bringing it back. And with step 1 of this exercise, clear Okay, I'm still located. Make sure that you're located in the root directory of your training project. And that will be, yeah, let me see, that would be step 5, right? That's step 4, that's task. Let me copy all these instructions in the chat window. Task 4. And the first one, we need to connect to the container of the first cluster node. Step 1. And next, you need to enable tracing. That's step 2. I'm writing these instructions for you in the chat. You can just follow me. You can read these instructions from screen and type them in. I will be typing in. So I am connecting to one of my containers. Docker exec IT Docker. The name of this container is Ignite server node 1, and I need the bash shell. I'm connected. I'm inside of the Docker container, and I need to go into the bin directory. Good, I'm in. So next one, step 2. I cannot. I don't want, spend time typing in this command. That's why I'm just, copy and paste it. So what this command does again, it enables tracing for transactions. So let me show it. So we enable tracing for the scope transactions, and the sampling rate is 1/3. We are going to capture 1/3 of their traces. All right, it's done, it's done, it's done. Once you do this, as always, thumbs up that you're finished with this. I see that some of you have already done this. That's why I will check the questions that you're still asking. But in the meantime, those of you who have already enabled this, quickly go to the control center tracing screen and let's observe the traces. All right, open your control center, click on the tracing tab, and if you keep refreshing it, you will see numerous traces. That means that a lot of the transactions are being reported. Let's click on any of these. Oh, this one looks suspicious. You see, average execution time is around 10 milliseconds, but this one on my end completed. It took like 44 milliseconds to complete this transaction. Let me see what happened. So that's the node ID. So like, how can you understand the node ID? If you go to the dashboard, let me go to the dashboard. That node ID of my client application. It means that the client application initiates this transaction, and this client application either commits this transaction as well. So it's a transaction coordinator. The other two nodes has different IDs. If you check with your dashboard, the ID of your client node also will be distinctive. So let me go back to the tracing. Okay, let me select this one. You can select any trace. 34 milliseconds, this one. Okay, that's not ID. That's my client application. That's who initiated this transaction. Then we see, some, and then this node execute the two-phase commit protocol. Ignite is a strongly consistent system. It's ACID compliant, and its consistency, is bolstered by the two-phase commit protocol. So that's why whenever it's also, a good way to see how this two-phase commit protocol operates at the cluster scale. So let's see. We have, I'm interested in this commit message. Click on it. You see that commit again was initiated by the transaction. Then we had the prepare phase. This client application executed this prepare phase. This prepare request arrived on one of the nodes, and that node keeps the primary copy of a record that is being updated by this transaction. Let's look in this prepare phase. This node started executing this prepare phase locally, and then you see that at some point in time, this first primary node send a similar prepare request to another node, to the second node, because that second node keeps a backup copy of your record, which means that with two-phase commit protocol, when you're committing transactions, the primary copy of your record and backup copy of the record have to be consistent and updated atomically. So that's what happens here. And then like transaction prepare, then transaction finishes, etc., etc. So here is when you see the overall the transaction execution time was 10 milliseconds starting from the client application. And here, as you can see, where the time went, like who consumed most of the time. That's their first node. Then it was quite really fast on the second prime, on the backup node. That's how it works. Try, to click and to play with this on your end, but that's actually how it works in the nutshell. Quite easy to use, and it definitely will help you to solve bottlenecks. While you're playing with this screen, let me quickly go and check the chat window that is shown on my second laptop. I see a lot of +1, which means that you are successful with this step. Wonderful, happy to hear that. June is asking me to send a command to start the application. Let me respond to you. June, that command is in the chat. I think it's, sorry for that. It's a little bit clumsy today. That's our first training for Control Center, and I see that's a little bit clumsy to share all these instructions over the GoToWebinar. But bear with me. I will share these instructions with you. Instructions you need to use to start your applications. You're a fighter. I'm happy that you're not giving up and you still want to catch up with us. So June, you need to execute this step first. With this step, you will how do I respond to it? For some reason I cannot longer respond. Yep. But anyway, let me find you in there. In here. Okay, I'm copying these instructions for you in the chat window. That's the first one. You first need to build that application. Then you need to build the Docker image for this application, and then you start that application. All right, folks. Sorry, thanks for your patience. I just wanted to help June to figure out the issues on his side. All right, good. I see that all of you are finished, so that's it. That's it with tracing. It's quite easy, and that's all for this step of the tutorial. And the next one is the last one. But before we switch to the last one, let's turn off the tracing, because you don't want to have tracing enabled all the times, because it consumes the resources. And generally, as soon as you investigated a bottleneck or any problematic point, just switch off tracing and just go ahead and do like restore your performance or latency in the place that is problematic. So that's why, how do we turn the tracing off? It's simple. You need just to execute the same command, but set the sampling rate to 0. What could be simpler? Again, as always, as usually, let me copy this command for you in the chat window. Yeah, it's like step 3 was play with tracing in Control Center, and step 4 is turn off tracing. And you need to stay. Oops, that's the wrong one. You turn off tracing using this command. You need to just stay in your Docker. I'm still connected to this Docker container. I'm inside of the Docker container of this cluster node, and all I do is just execute the same command. No, not the same. By setting sampling rate to 0. You can find that's the last one message from me in the chat window. Just copy and paste it, because it's irksome to write it down. All right, I'm setting the tracing to 0. I no longer need any traces. And finally, right now, if you go back to the Control Center, if you try to refresh the screen, you no longer see any new traces appear here. All these are old, and they were collected before, and they are stored in your local deployment of Control Center, just for future reference. All right, folks, give me +1 or thumbs up if you are good, if you were able to turn off tracing. Once I see the first, yep, good. And before we proceed with the next step, final step, we have 18 minutes left for this training, and we will be in time regardless of all the difficulties in the beginning. But just let me quickly answer some of the questions. June. Okay, June is saying that June, yep, that something is failing. June, let's do this. Unfortunately, yes, the training will end soon. Use that. Probably it makes sense, to start from scratch, or we can connect after this training so that I can pinpoint where you're stuck. But generally, the written version of this training, you already seen it, and I shared with you. It's posted on Ignite under the Ignite tutorial sections, and try to go step by step. And if you find if you just got stuck at any point, just send us a message. You can find me easily on Twitter or like over the email. But in the meantime, let's switch to the final one, step task 4 of our training. It's task 5. Yeah, sorry. It's like final task 5. You've done so many things. And so right now, what we are going to do, we are going to final thing, right? When our system is already in production, when we have our monitoring and management solution up and running, we need to take care of data recovery, because nothing is eternal in our universe. Right now, you might have some new disks, like new servers, everything is stored and working perfectly fine. But even disks, flash drives are not eternal. They can wear off in several years, which means that the data that Ignite keeps on those disks can become corrupted just because those disks need to be replaced. But what we do with classical databases and storage systems, we take backups, because anything can happen. Your disk can be corrupted, or you can deploy a version of the application that destroys some of your data. But if you have backups, you will have a peace of mind. We will be able to restore our cluster to, let's say, a particular point and keep it running. So a little bit of theory. So those of you who are keeping an eye on the Apache Ignite announcement, Apache Ignite and Ignite 2.9, the community released an open source version of the snapshotting capabilities. But in this training, we are going to use backups and snapshots that exist in GridGain Enterprise and in GridGain Ultimate Edition. GridGain version is much more advanced. It's been used in production for many years, and it lets us create full snapshots, incremental snapshots. It lets us, to rewind the state of our cluster to any point in time, up to any minute, an hour. And this version of the snapshots is integrated into Control Center. So like once you use the snapshots, you just can use buttons on Control Center interface to create snapshots, to plan creation of incremental snapshots, and then restore your cluster the way you need. And that's how it looks like on the screen, just basic capabilities. What you can create full incremental backups. You can check backups integrity with Control Center. You can use the point-in-time recovery, which exists in GridGain backup feature, and you can automate everything, right, with the help of Control Center when it comes to your backups strategy. So what you are going to do with this last task? We are going to corrupt our cluster. We are going to erase data from one of the tables, from the trades. Not a good idea for production, but it's good for this exercise. And then also we will be using a special snapshot that we will create beforehand to restore your cluster after that corruption is identified. So let's do this step with this exercise. I want you to stop your application just for the sake of this demo. When you will be doing backups or you will be doing backups in production, you don't need to stop your application load for sure. It's just the specificity of this demo case, because I want you just to to delete the whole table so that you have 0 records in the table. And I don't want that application to keep populating that table. It's just for the demo. And once you stop this demo, then we would go to the control center snapshot screen. We will create a full cluster snapshot, etc. Okay, so first thing first, that's task 5, right? I will be copy and pasting instructions for you. That's task 5. We are step 1, stop this application, right? And then step 2, go and create a full snapshot. All right. Follow me or just copy all these instructions. So all right, I'm still in this Docker environment. If you're also in Docker, exit this cluster container. Just type in the exit command. I need you to go back to the host terminal of your host operating system. Make sure that you are in the root of your training project. And right now, let's do this. Docker compose. I'm stopping this application. Streaming up, stop. All right, no more load on our system. Stop. All right. Okay, the application is down. And what we do next, we go ahead and create this backup. And again, we do this, once again, just want to highlight this. You don't need to stop any application load when you do this in production. When you create a backup in production, that's just done for the sake of this demo. I have a special scenario for you. Go to Control Center, go to the Snapshots tab. And that's the screen. We don't have any snapshot yet. That's why click on the Add Snapshot button. A simple dialog will pop up, and here is create a full snapshot. And let's go for the default compression level. And I don't want, to take a snapshot of the whole cluster. I just want to take a backup or snapshot of the trade table. Let's do the trade table. That's the most important table that keeps all the transactions, all the deals that happened, let's say, on some imaginary New York Stock Exchange. And click Add. Oh, my cluster is offline. Okay, looks like something is wrong with my cluster. Try to click on your side. Hopefully, guys, you are more lucky. You should, once you click this Add button, everything should work fine on your end. And let me try to fix and figure out what happens on my side. I don't know what happened, but give me +1 if you were able to create this snapshot. In the meantime, let me try to restore my cluster. So let me see, Docker logs, Docker container, ls. What's going on? It looks like I disconnected from the cluster. Okay, yeah, the cluster is disconnected. Huh. Weird. Let's figure out. Let me check the logs of the backend of Control Center. That's the name of the container, Docker logs. While you keep doing your backup, hopefully that's just my issue. Give me +1 thumbs up if you are able to create this snapshot. Docker logs. Okay, it just says that browser disconnected. Yep, something, I don't know, that's some of the instructions related to the tracing. Yeah, looks like everything is fine with Control Center. Let me check the logs of the cluster. Yeah, one of the nodes is down. That's weird. Let me see what happened with that node. Docker logs. Some exception. Yeah, that means that just we disconnected from the console. The easiest way to fix right now, I don't want to spend the time. I will try to restart the cluster. Let me do this. Probably that will help. So to restart the cluster, I will execute this Docker command. I will stop the cluster. It will stop all the nodes. The first one is already down. And next, let me bring the cluster back. You don't need to do this. Yeah, I see that some of you were able to proceed. but also surprisingly, some of the guys are also experiencing this issue. All right, guys, I'm not alone. Looks like we hit some issue, probably in the recent version of any of the software, but let's try to restart the cluster. Do this, right? Let me copy this command for you if you have troubles. If you have troubles, stop the cluster, and then let's bring the cluster back. And to bring it back, let me use this command. I don't want to type it in, and then bring it back, and then bring the cluster back. All right, it says the cluster is up and running. Fingers crossed. Let's go to the control center. If you had the same issue, check the chat window. I pasted the instructions for how to restore the cluster. Let me refresh the screen. It says it's disconnected. What's going on? If you're already using control center, the nodes are up and running. Yep, the nodes are up and running, but the cluster is not active, which means, oh, finally, you see? Try to refresh, it probably just took more time. My cluster is back, we have 5 minutes left for this exercise. Hopefully, yeah, so someone suggests that probably the application did not step gracefully and start with some exception that caused the node goes down. You know, like it might happen, but it's still weird, right? I don't know, like I will check the logs of that node after the training. I just want to understand what happened, because yes, whenever we stop this application, it should not affect the state of our cluster. You know, some probably minor issue which is unpleasant one. Anyway, let me go to the snapshot screen because I need to catch up. Right now, I have to catch up with you. I see that many of you have already be able to create that snapshot. Let me do the snapshot. I'm creating the full snapshot, compression level, default one, and I need only the trades table. Oh, good. The process has started. Let's give several seconds for this to finish. Okay. It looks like I need to take, for some reason, the gauge, this bar is not updating in Safari. Yeah, I will report this usability issue to our control center team. All right, the snapshot is ready. Wonderful. So we can validate, check it, move it to any other network location. But today, let's quickly finish this training because we want to do this. Let's go back to the control center SQL screen, step number 3. We want to check how many records the application was able to insert in the cluster, and then we were going to erase this whole table. So I will not be copying these commands in the chat. These are the last instructions. Just follow my screen. All right, I'm going to the SQL. Just let's update this query. Select count from table. How many records do I have? I have more than 14,000 records. Your number, you're most likely 100%. I bet that your number is different because you studied applications like earlier or later than I did, and then the application might have executed for different amount of time on your end. So it just this number, what you need to pay attention to, that this number must be non-zero, right? And next, let's create another tab. I want to save that query with this tab. Let me delete from trade. I'm just erasing this whole table. So presently, when I was preparing for this training, for some reason, this deletion process takes some time, like 10 or 20 seconds from my end. Most likely that's because right now that's Docker on a single machine, and Ignite, it tries to do this consistently. It updates memory, disk, write-ahead log files. But generally, in real life, this operation completes much faster. That might be something, I don't know, related to my local setup. So, which means that no worries if it takes like a longer time to delete this table. That's something, specific to the current setup. Just give it some slack, give it some time to finish this deletion. While I'm waiting for this deletion to finish, let me check the question. Can you take snapshot online without application downtime? Yes. You can take full snapshots, incremental snapshots. You can restore your cluster while your applications are running. I stopped the application only, to demonstrate this demo because I wanted to delete this table and I wanted to have zero records in the table. Another question, I thought that the cluster was stopped. How is the application able to write to the database? We stopped the application. The cluster is still up and running. In my case, what you've seen on my screen, I had some issue with my cluster and I had to restart this cluster. All right, for some reason it takes longer than expected to delete this. What's going wrong? Okay, finally in 30, it took me probably a minute. But anyway, that's a different matter. So right now I deleted all the records. If I go back to this screen, I have 0, right? The table is empty and you should have the same number, guys. What do we do? Let's restore. Go to the snapshots tab and use this snapshot. Execute restore from snapshot. Let's restore the table. The other question, there is no load. Does delete being that slow is not a good indication for solid performance? I think that's so curious with the delete. I just need to investigate. That might be something specific to this Docker and local setup. I just spotted this performance issue yesterday when I was finalizing my instructions for you. But rather than that, this delete operation is used by many in production and nobody was reporting any issues. That might be something specific. So no worries about that. The other question, could you please elaborate on which version of Community Edition comes with backup feature and what the difference between GridGain? So the difference is that with Ignite, you can take just full snapshot and then you can use just special tools that are provided in Ignite. But then when it comes to, you cannot do incremental snapshots, you cannot do point-in-time recovery. And when it comes to the restore procedure, you have to do this restore with Ignite snapshots manually. While with GridGain snapshots, everything is automated. That's something like a brief explanation. Being on laptop is not enough of an explanation. There is an issue you want to look into. Yes, Amir, I agree that there is some issue with that. Delete. Can we take snapshots if persistence mode is disabled? No, snapshots work only for the clusters with Ignite native persistence. Because during the snapshot, we are using the write-ahead log files and we're using persistence files to take that snapshot. All right, guys, and once it's over, go back to the SQL screen, and if you execute this command, you've got all the data back. All right. So we've done this as a summary of these instructions. That's how you can tear down this setup. You have already running out of time. Let me quickly copy these commands for you because you can always restart this. If you want to keep this setup running, leave it. If you want to tear everything down, here is the shutdown instructions for you. Let me do this on my end. I want to shut down everything. It will kill everything. It will release all the resources. I'm stopping the cluster. I'm stopping GridGain control center. I'm just tearing down, removing everything. And you can do the same, or you can just stop it, or just keep it running. It's not principle. And I'm stopping, and the application is already stopped, but I just want to remove all the resources that were associated with it. And also, the slides will be shared. As I said, this interactive session was based on the written version of this tutorial. That's the address. You can always go ahead and reproduce all the steps later. If you want to learn more about GridGain Control Center documentation, go to that documentation section to explore more on control center capabilities. And finally, today, the goal of this thing was, to talk about how to use Ignite in production. In production, we need to use management and monitoring setup. If you want to look what are the other tips and tricks and best practices for running Ignite in production, go to the GridGain YouTube channel and find the Ignite in production playlist. You will find a lot of recordings that will help you to harden your Ignite clusters. And final slide, make sure you are part of our Apache Ignite virtual community. We are running a special virtual Ignite meetup where Ignite users and commuters, they kind of host different events, talking about the use cases, about optimization practices. We have some of the events lined up, so check this meetup and happy to see you there. If you already have your own story of Ignite to share with the Ignite users and developers and community, send us a message. Having said that, thanks for attending, and I'm handing over the mic to Venkat and Ksenia. If you have any other questions to me, you can find me on Twitter or let's say, or on Ignite user list. Thanks, guys.